Good evening and welcome to the Yilvasaker Fine Arts Center here at Bethany Lutheran College. It's always good to see us have to get more chairs out. For those of you squinting in the back, the sun has been slowly moving its way across the crowd, and very shortly it'll be climbing the wall, and you'll be relieved. I'm sorry. We have control of some things, but not all things. The event that you're attending is the Capstone event. We use the word capstone from kind of a building metaphor in which we think about an education being built from the ground up, and at the very end, we add that last little piece, that finial, that kind of completes it. It's a beautiful thing, it's a beautiful ending, and it relies on everything under it. The idea of a capstone is that it's a culmination of everything that's come before. The three artists that we have with us are seniors. Two of them are studio art majors. One of them is a graphic design major. And the thing that I want to get across to you, to just leave with you, is that art made by humans has a point of view, an opinion. Right? We see evidence here. We see physical things. There's paint and marker and graphic design and prints. We see objects, but those come from intention. These three people have great intentions. And they're here to tell you about what they hope the artwork does inside of you. Please welcome our Capstone students.
Thank you all for coming. Hi. We're going to start off by watching a little preview video for my part of this show put together by Tyler Pasbrig, who's also a student here at Bethany.
Why do I make art? I don't think I'm built to do anything else. The thing that really helped me settle on this project was my dad talking to me about how a capstone is a culmination of what you've already been learning, both in and out of school. And so for me, a really big thing is my sketchbook habit. I try and work in my sketchbook every day, at least a page or two, generating, just drawing whatever I see around me. And I was also trying to think, okay, so I want to do a biblical story. And what I really love about creation is that it shows us God as an artist. Like, that's the very first way we're introduced to God, is him making things and being an artist and creating things, which I think is so beautiful. He didn't make any of that out of necessity. It was all like this big, generous outburst of love that he just made. He made us, he made so many things for us, he made so many things that all balance each other out. It helps me kind of connect and understand God on a different level. It feels very personal. Definitely the outside world has sustained excitement for me throughout this whole project. I love looking at things outside, like the clouds and the trees and the grass and stuff, as gifts that I receive them. They're specifically to me, but they're also specifically to everybody else. I see a cute little squirrel cross my path. I mean, that didn't have to happen, but everything happens for a reason, so it's like a delightful little thing for me. And I'd really like to give that kind of attitude to other people, because I think it makes life a lot more enjoyable. I'm hoping to make people joyful. I'm hoping to make people happy. In my head, it's a gift that I'm giving people. Kids, though, are really good at being really curious and really, like, invested in digging into images in a way that some adults seem to have kind of lost that ability, or at least that tendency. So I'm trying to give a gift that rewards them for really digging into these pictures and spending time thinking about the way that God made all of these things for them. My goal is that people sit with this and that it gives them maybe a new or refreshed way to see and feel God's love for them and to understand their own love in return for God. It's been important to me throughout this whole time that it looks handmade, that it looks like a person made this, because I'd like to encourage other people to make things, you know, especially people who are getting invested, especially kids who are curious about this, that if they enjoy it, if they like it, that they too could then make something and kind of add to that conversation of humanity. A lot of times when I'm working, I'll think of the verse, "Here am I, send me, send me." I'm just really doing my best to get out of my own way and be a vessel for God's love and God's word. And I love thinking about that, especially as I'm, doing the work that I feel like I've been made to do. To think that this is why I'm here feels so exciting, so fulfilling. Yeah, like it just feels really, really good.
So, big thank you to Tyler on that video. And a huge thank you to all of you for coming. It's incredibly mind-blowing how many people are here right now. We'll start with a little bit about me. There's a bit of an introduction in that video, but I'm a senior here. This is my capstone project. And my current career goal is to become a children's book illustrator. And so I spent this entire last year trying that out by making a children's book. This is actually my second published book. However, this is the first one that I had full control over as both author and illustrator. So I'd really like to talk about how I made this. I spent quite a bit of time brainstorming what exactly I wanted this book to be, what I wanted it to be about. I ended up landing on telling the creation account of Genesis 1 and 2. And after choosing that concept, I spent quite a bit of time planning page layouts and kind of the overall pacing and tone of the book. This was a lot of the initial work, which you can actually see I've got a process sketchbook up here that when we move these chairs away, you can feel free to flip through. My goal became to encourage readers to really appreciate God's creation. So I plan to include several pages per day for most of the days of creation. This is to really slow you down and to help readers dwell in each moment. I had a loose plan in the form of many thumbnail sketches and a small dummy book, which is also over here on this little podium. A thumbnail sketch is a very loose and small sketch that's used to plan the layout of a page. That's kind of what these are over here. They're not meant to be pretty, they're usually quite messy, but they get the job done. And a dummy book is an assembly of all of these thumbnail sketches. That picture on the left over there is one of the many pages of my dummy book. And that book is an assembly of sketches that allows you to sort of preview your work and kind of get a feel for the pace of the overall book and if you like the compositions that are going to be next to each other. So at this stage, I was concerned with things like storytelling and how the narrative was flowing. And from there, I knew the images that I needed to make. I kind of knew what I was trying to say, but I did not know exactly what the images would look like. I mean, these are the sketches that are happening at this stage. I also had the very unique challenge of portraying what the earth looked like before it existed, formless and empty. How do you even begin to show something that is formless? I struggled with this for quite a while and tried several different things and eventually landed on an ancient technique called marbled paper. Marbled paper involves taking a tray of water that you drop ink, or in my case, oil paint, as shown in this video, onto the surface of. Then you take a sheet of paper and lay it on top of that water and peel it up, and an image of that swirly ink comes up with it. This originated in Japan, and I learned about this technique in a workshop when I was in grade school. And I spent a bit more time exploring it in my time studying abroad in Florence, and it became a really useful way to get some interesting imagery. I think that the unpredictable nature of the images produced really lends itself to the ambiguity of this moment in creation. For the rest of the pages, I took a much more familiar approach. I was producing images and allowing them to grow and change as I went, which is the same way I act in my sketchbook. I'll open to a blank page and kind of start without much of a plan, or really any plan at all. It's a lot of pure reaction. All of the thumbnail sketches and research that I had done acted as scaffolding for these final illustrations. To begin these images, I gathered lots and lots of reference photos, just massive boards on Pinterest, and began making an intentional mess on some bright yellow paper, as you can see here. Throughout the entire book, I used a wide range of media, from inks to paints to colored pencils and ballpoint pens. And if you're curious, you can read about the materials I used on each piece on their respective title cards. All of these illustrations built up over time. For example, one of the vegetation illustrations began by sitting outside on a nice day and sketching the sky spaces between the tree leaves. This gave me something on the page to react to, and that's what you can see there. And from there, I sort of began to build a scene. I sat down outside on another nice day and drew some grass and some lavender from life without really knowing what would come next, but just knowing I needed to take action if I was gonna get this book done. The rest of the plants were carefully drawn while looking at photos, either from those massive Pinterest boards or from my own camera roll. Pretty soon, it wasn't super feasible to be working from life outside, got kind of chilly. I didn't know exactly where things were going to go in these images. I kind of just kept drawing one more thing and trying to figure out what the image needed next. And a lot of times, people would kind of come in and filter in through the room, and they would tell me about their favorite plants or their favorite flowers, and then I would add those to the images. And same thing with animals and, the birds and the fish. Many of the book images are constructed in this layered way, the fish and land animal and bird pages especially. This results in a lush and surprising image, I think. I find that the surprises and the joy that I experienced while working this way seems to translate through the paper, and I hope that people find more and more things throughout the book the more they revisit it and read it again. This ties hand in hand with how I view God's creation. I think it's an absolute outburst of his love and his joy, and it's very generous. The more you look at the Lord's work, the more and more you see and appreciate, and the more you realize that there's less that you know. Ultimately, this book is a celebration of God's creation and me doing my best to imitate God as the artist. After God made all of the plants and animals, he created the first humans. He created us from dust. He formed us. And so I wanted there to be a difference in these images from when he was forming the plants and the animals purely from speech. This presented a uniquely Christian artistic challenge. How do I depict God Well, something that became very important to me over the course of making this book was the concept of God as artist. The first 5 words of the Bible are, "In the beginning, God created." And so I chose to depict him using his hands as a sculptor might. If you're familiar with the Bible and with the initial chapters of Genesis, you may feel like I've cut the story short when you look through my book. This book does not include the fall into sin. This was an incredibly intentional move on my part. Oftentimes, I feel like the account of creation is used simply as a means to reach the drama of the story. But I'd like to shift some of our attention back into those initial days. Consider that these first chapters are a prime view of God's original intentions for us. He was caring, he was generous, and he built a world of beauty for us. Now, after the fall, I believe many of these intentions for beauty are still available to be found around us. I'd like to encourage you to slow down and to take in the gifts God gives you each day. The birds that are flying overhead, the beautiful sunlight blinding you in the back, the crunchy-looking bushes outside the YFAC. They're all beautiful. And that's why I spent 3 entire pages on God making vegetation and 3 more on the creatures of the ocean. Because I think appreciation is a good place to dwell. And the tragedy of the fall is not the identity of God's creation. A couple more technical things. In order to pull the reader in, I added these dark borders around the edges of some of these beginning pages. As the reader progresses through the book, these borders slowly shrink, and eventually they disappear. This helps you to feel the expansion and lushness of God's creation over the course of the week, and to kind of have that growing, enveloping feeling. All of the text is handwritten on paper, scanned, and then added in digitally. This allowed for some room for error, as well as quite a bit of experimentation. It also provides potential for translation in the future. Once everything is all set up digitally, I sent the book off to John Ring at the MLC print shop. He and I worked together to produce all the physical copies you see on the table way back there. It was really great to work with him, as I've never been through the publication process before myself, so I had a ton of questions, and he was very helpful. Putting my work in the format of a printed product has expanded the amount of people that I can share my ideas with clearly. It's been really blowing my mind recently to consider how my work will continue to say what I'm saying to you today, even after I'm done pouring my time and attention into it. I hope to do more work like this for the rest of my life. If you'd like to spend some time dwelling in this work after the show comes down, or if you'd just like to support me in my work, you can purchase your own copy of my book, either at the back table there with cash or on my website. And there's a QR code back there that you can scan. Huge, huge, huge thank yous to all of the professors that helped me. Famous tennis player Althea Gibson says that no matter what you accomplish, there's always others who accomplish it along with you. I'd really like to thank my dad and Andy Overn and Ben Lunston, who also took these amazing process pictures for me, helping my slideshow look nice. Chad Hines and Doyle Holbird for a lot of their advice on a lot of the biology that you see in these illustrations. And to everybody in the painting room who passed through and gave me feedback, whether you're some of the students that live there with me or some of the people who were just visiting, I really sincerely appreciate it. And to my family for supporting me up until this point and beyond. And a very big thank you to everybody who calmed my nerves this morning. I really appreciate that. Thank you. And now, Anna Tausz.
All right. Hi, everyone. Can you hear me? Are we good? Okay. Get closer. Okay. I'm also going to begin by showing a video that was made about me working on my capstone. It was made by Skylar and Noah, so a huge, huge thank you to them. Do I do something or? Okay. Did that work?
Yeah, so I hope it's universal. I really think it is, and I hope that people looking at it feel the same. This work, I think, happened in my subconscious or in ways that I wasn't aware of until I was actually in it. Like, I decided that I would do reduction linoleum printmaking, and I kind of didn't have a reason why. It just seemed like, oh, I kind of want to do that. I think I was saving the title of artist for a time that I did feel it, and that it didn't feel hollow, and that it didn't feel fake. Like, I wanted to believe that I was an artist before I called myself that, and so I was very much like an art student. Like, that's what I am. I think it was during this process, I was telling my best friend Abby this last night. I was like, it's during Capstone that it's the first time that I felt like an artist. The process is so physical, and it's so physically connected to and reliant on a relationship with the materials. And so as I'm, carving away my layers, there is that fear very present of me being like, if I make a run mark, like, I can't put that linoleum shard back on. I have to move forward, and then that is kind of part of the image, whether I want it to be or not. And so I think I realized that the fear I was feeling about holding on to things, holding on to the past, and being in control maybe, I had to let that go, and I had to make peace with that as I have to move forward, and I have to carve. It start out of a place of nostalgia or melancholy or feelings, kind of more sorrowful feelings. I did begin to feel stubborn about that. I think I was determined that instead of something being lost, that nothing is lost, and that because I take these places with me, because I loved so much in them and felt so much in them, that it's not that they're gone and that I can never return to them. Maybe I can physically return to them, but I cannot return the same person that was in them. I'm not mourning or sorrowing after those places anymore, in a way. The goodness and the beauty that has followed is kind of abundant. What I want my artwork to do, and what I think some of the best artwork does, is just says something about what it is to be a human, and it's kind of a connection between people, and it can make people feel less alone. It can make people feel understood, and just recognize like the very complicated and deep emotions that, specifically human beings have. And I just feel so much more at peace as a result of doing this work. And I'm so certain that wherever I go, first of all, I'm not alone. And second of all, there will be so much joy still, and I'll have like multiple more prints that I could make because of all of the special places I'm gonna see in my future. And so the wonders will never cease for me. I think I have been blessed so much, and I have done so much that I was afraid of, and I can do it again.
Okay. Okay, oh, we're good. Okay. All right. Yeah, so thank you so much to Skylar and Noah for that video. That was really, really beautiful for me to see. I saw it for the first time today. Okay. All right, so yes, my capstone are the 5 prints on that back wall. My technique, I want to start by talking about my technique. It's very integral to my concept. Yeah. So I really felt when I got here in August that I wanted to do this technique. It's called reduction lino cut, and it's something that I learned while I was studying abroad in Italy from my printmaking professor, Patricia Silva. It was a technique that was very difficult for me to wrap my head around. It was very difficult for me to learn, but once I did, I loved it so much that I was like, I think I want to do that for my capstone. And it was kind of, I didn't know why I felt so sure of that, and that will be a theme. That was a theme throughout this entire process, that there were things that I felt that I really needed to do that didn't really make sense until I had done them, and here it is completed, which is crazy. So printmaking is not offered at Bethany, so I had to kind of set up a makeshift studio for myself in the painting room. Luckily, Jason had a press that I could use, and everything worked out. So I am just going to begin by describing the process to you, because I think it's very important to understand my concept through the process. So you start out with this piece of linoleum. Linoleum that you could find on the floor is also sold in art supply stores at any size that you need, and it's a method of block printing that the reduction process uses just one piece of linoleum for the entire image. So instead of having multiple plates for each layer or each color, you just have the one. So you have to plan very intensely actually what's going to happen with that piece of linoleum. You really have to take advantage of it. This is kind of the beginning of the metaphor of this piece. You have to take advantage of the linoleum while you have it before you've carved it away, and that's true of time as well. So first you're going to carve layer 1. I depicted what I carved away here for you to see in white, and the linoleum is gray. So that's the piece of linoleum that I started out with. This is the print of my sister's apartment in Manhattan. So I carved away first everything that I wanted to remain the white of the page, so that that would be the brightest part. That's the sunlight. This is an image of the process. You can see my tools, you can see my reference image, you can see the shards of linoleum, and you can see as I begin to, I think that's layer 2, and I'm doing the process. So then you sort of do this very repetitious process of mixing your color. In this case, it was brown, and you ink up your plate with a roller, and then you print your first layer. And this is where you have to decide how big of an edition you want to have. So you're going to print as many as are going to be in that edition. And that's all you can ever have. This is a process that you're destroying the material as you work on it, so it can't be replicated. So these are like one of a kind, and you can't do it endlessly. It's a very special thing. This is what it looks like to mix colors. You have your inks, and you can mix whatever color you want, and then you use rollers to roll it out, and then roll that onto the linoleum. And then you just repeat that process. And so you're carving away whatever you want to remain the color that was already printed underneath it. So here I carved away what I want to remain that first brown color. So that's what my linoleum looked like at this stage. And then I rolled green ink onto it and printed it on top. I'm really hoping this makes sense, by the way. I'm hoping I'm doing a good job of explaining this. And then you just repeat that. So then I carved away what I wanted to remain green, and that's what was left of the linoleum plate. Again, you're like destroying it as you go. You're carving it away. And then you're gonna roll your next color on top of that, and then print it. And as you can see, like it's a reverse image. When you're printing, it's gonna result in a reverse image. Yeah, so this is where I stopped on this print. That was just 3 layers. You could continue for as long as you want to for, you know, what design you're doing. Okay, really the main point of that is that you have this one piece of linoleum to create this entire image. And I realized that instinctively I had thought, I really think I should do a reduction lino cut for my capstone. And I realized as I was working on it, in the middle of it, that it was a metaphor for what I was trying to say as I tried to capture these places and talk about these bigger human ideas of longing for the past maybe, and maybe being afraid of the future. But I really had to face some of my demons almost as I was working on this and think about how much I missed some of these places and how much I was going to miss some of these places. But I was really determined that this not be an idea of, I didn't want it to end with fear or nostalgia or longing or sadness. I wanted it to end with hope. And as I worked, I kind of discovered how I could maybe make that clear and maybe share that with everyone. So yeah, the reductive technique echoes the idea of never being able to return to this landscape of places in our past, because even if we can physically return, we have changed. So as you transform the linoleum, it's kind of like you as a person are changing and you're moving on and you can only move forward. This project did begin out of fear. I was afraid of losing. I think really what it started out of, I was afraid of losing Italy forever. I had such a wonderful time there, and it was really hard for me to come to terms with that I was leaving this home behind and this beautiful place behind. And then there was this sensation that I couldn't let it end with that. I had to make it somehow end with hope. Yeah, so I'm gonna take you through these. These prints are really a culmination of the last 2 years of my life, which have been the beginning of my discovery that I am an artist, which that was very emotional for me to realize. I'm so joyful to have found words and the medium to express an idea that I feel very passionate about in a body of work that I'm very proud of. I displayed them here in the gallery in the order that they occurred to me in my life, so sort of in the order that these places happened to me, but that's not the order that I made them in. So I'm gonna show you the order that I made them in, because I think that might be better. So I started out with Italy, of course. I really, as I was working on this and as I was writing what I was gonna say tonight, I was like, now you can't talk about Italy the whole time. You have to talk about other things. I'm very tempted to just always talk about Italy, but yeah. So this is the view from my apartment from when Maida and I were studying abroad in Italy together. A huge majority of the work that I did was with color. I really wanted to try and use color to evoke how the places made me feel and have a sensation of the joy that I had there, or the transformation that I had in these places. So this was, yeah, this one, if I had to pick a favorite, it would be this one. Maybe you don't care, but this is my favorite. So yeah, so this one gave me a lot of confidence because I realized that I actually could pull off an idea that I had in my head, and then I felt that I could move forward with, you know, the other four. Yeah, so I wanted it to be warm, and I wanted it to evoke all of the joy that I had there. The next one I created is my apartment right now in Mankato, and this is the only one. I realized that it takes place at night because it does. Because, yeah, I don't know. I also, this was another one of those choices that just, I didn't know why, but it kind of had to be this way. I decided to make this one more monochromatic, and I think it contributes to the sense of peace and calm that I'm trying to evoke with this. It's a place where I've had a lot of deep conversations and really felt that I was moving forward and thinking about my future. This is my sister's apartment in Manhattan. I went to visit her one year for spring break, and it was the first time I had flown on a plane alone, and it was really scary for me, and I was like, okay, this is my coming of age story. So yeah, I kind of, with this one, wanted the colors to be a little bit more contrasting maybe than you saw in the first two, and a little bit more maybe muted, maybe sophisticated, because I was, again, trying to imagine that I was very mature at this point. Yeah, so there's that one. This is a place that has very recently become very special to me. I'm an intern at the Carnegie Art Center here in Mankato, and I have learned so much and grown so much, and it's a very special place for me, and I wanted it to feel warm. With this one, I did something I hadn't really done before, which was pull colors from the architecture. Like the peach color is inspired by the exterior of the building. It's kind of this stone that has that color. And then the purple is painted on like the frames of the windows. But mostly I really wanted it to be warm. And then the white form in the middle is a piece that was made by my dear friend Lisa, who's a studio artist there. She wove it actually out of dental floss, which is very awesome. And I knew I wanted to include that because I wanted to make sure that I looked at this and felt like I connected. Like the whole time I was trying to make sure that I felt how special I was trying to prove to everyone else that these places were, and I really could only do that by, including something that maybe I'm the only one, and now all of you, that will ever know that that's what that is, but yeah, that's okay to me. It gives it a warmth and a depth, I think. And then this is the last one. This is the painting room where Maida and I have studios for Capstone. And I realized I wanted to end with that because this process in itself has been so transformational for me. Learning about myself and struggling through things, and realizing, like I said, oh, I think I am an artist. It's been, yeah, I had a lot of wonderful conversations and a lot of laughter, and there was also a lot of hard work and also a lot of tears in that room. But yeah. So, as I wrap up here, I want to just emphasize that as I began out of this idea of fear and about this idea of losing something and leaving places behind. And as I graduate, I'm also afraid of the future and where I'm going to go. And I realized that I was focusing on the wrong things. I was focusing on the fear of losing the past and the fear of the uncertainty in my future, but I should have been focusing on the blessings God had given me again and again. I realized that I could be sure and confident that because of his faithfulness, I would continue to be blessed in my future. These places have transformed me into who I am now, and therefore I carry them with me, and nothing is lost, but only gained, and wonders will never cease. I found an immense sense of peace as I captured these blessings in my past and saw in them a promise for more joy in my future. Although my future is unknown, it is full of possibilities which are better than certainty, because without doubt, there can be no faith. I can rest in the loving God who has promised me that he knows the plans that he has for me. Plans for welfare and not for evil, to give me a future and a hope. I hope that the viewer can sense that I care deeply about these places. I hope that by sharing my New York, my Florence, and my Mankato, I can give hope and consolation to others for their futures by showing them the feelings that are inside of me here at the end of my beginning. I want to conclude by saying this would have been impossible on my own without the incredible support of so many people, especially my professors. To my professors, Patricia, Jason, and Andy, for their wisdom. To my amazing friends for listening and comforting and supporting me every step of the way. And finally, to my wonderful parents, I am so grateful. Thank you. Thank you so much. Now please join me in welcoming Holly Marquardt.
Hi, my name is Holly Marquardt, and I'm the creator of artandministry.com. What is art and ministry? Well, I'm going to play an animation that I created to kind of explain that a little bit. We are created to create, to take the raw materials of the world and glorify God with our sub-creations. If we as Lutherans nurture our artistic gifts, we can express our faith in a whole new dimension. However, parochial school teachers often feel overwhelmed and unprepared for teaching art. Lutheran pastors don't always know how to find quality artwork to support their message. Meanwhile, the artists within our church body sometimes feel undervalued. The goal of art and ministry is to promote a rich artistic environment within confessional Lutheran churches and schools. We aim to bring art into the spotlight so that we can have beautiful worship spaces, fulfilled careers, and deeper study of and connection to God's Word. In our blog, we feature tips and tricks for art instructional practices, ideas for church beautification, and interviews with real artists who share their faith through creativity. Visit artandministry.com to learn more. So this project has a long history. Whether you can tell or not, I'm actually 10 years older than some of my peers here. I've been building artandministry.com in my head for years, and I finally have the opportunity to bring it about in the scope that I imagined. I come from a missionary family. I grew up in Brazil, and that instilled in me a heart for ministry. And I also inherited from my mom a love for art. She taught me observational drawing skills, and she would listen to me ramble about truth and beauty and art. And as a result, I thought about being an art teacher. And so it made a lot of sense to me to go to Luther Preparatory School and then Martin Luther College. But when I arrived there, I was a little disappointed in their art offerings. So at the time, Luther Prep only had 2 semesters of art. There was a drawing course and then a colored media course, and you could only take those as juniors or seniors. And then at MLC, they just had a survey of art history course and 1 art educational course for elementary and middle schools. In fact, when I toured MLC, Professor Hartzell, who taught art, said, if you're looking into going into art education, you should probably go elsewhere. But I was adamant that I wanted to teach in WELL schools, and this was the school for ministry, so I decided I would just be the change that I wanted to see. So my sophomore year, I joined this group called the Student Art Advocacy Group, or SOG. They had an inaugural wine and cheese night, minus the wine. And they were adamant that it's important to have an art program in your elementary school and your secondary school. And for that, you need art teachers. And to have art teachers, you need an art education major. So they went around and got signatures for this petition for an art education major at MLC, and they collected almost 300 signatures. So not insignificant, but it's a student-run club, and so the leaders went off to student teach or graduated, and so the traction died. So during that hiatus, I wanted to bring up the awareness again for art, and so I wrote an article for the Hilltop Happenings, the student newspaper, about getting an art education major, and I put a lot of research into it. So I interviewed Jason Jaspersen, Jonathan Mayer, some of the MLC profs, and some of the pastors, just to see if I could get the administration to notice. And then also, I was part of the ALEC group that invited external speakers. So I invited Jason to talk about liturgical art, because it's important for these future pastors and teachers to know what goes into making liturgical art so that they can commission that for their churches as well. And then finally, before I graduated, I helped to found the resurrection of the SAW group as Art and Ministry, because we were future pastors and teachers who wanted to know how to use art in our ministries, right? So we had a paint night, and that went pretty well. And that tradition has continued on. They still have Bob Ross nights to this day. So after graduating, my first official call was to Nebraska Lutheran High School, and I was a dorm supervisor and instructor, or a tutor. If you're familiar with the Wells school system, tutors often pick up the slack of whatever the other teachers need to lighten their course load, and so it happened to be that the art class was open, so I was able to teach art as an English major. I was super excited, but I realized that even though I was interested in art, I didn't necessarily know how to teach it, because I had some drawing skills, but I didn't really know how to paint. I definitely didn't know how to sculpt or do ceramics or anything like that. So imagine if someone had to teach this class and they didn't even know how to draw. That would be very difficult. Over 2020, I decided to step away from teaching and go into a creative career. So I started taking some classes for graphic design. Around that same time, I was dating Philip Wells in the scene shop. So I moved here to Mankato. I was just gonna take some community college classes, but the courses that I had already taken weren't transferring. So in that same time of getting an associate's degree, I could have gotten a bachelor's degree from Bethany. So it just worked out. And it's been a huge, huge blessing to be able to come here to take all those art and design classes I had imagined from professional artists and people who share my faith, which you can't get that everywhere. So when I was coming up with my capstone, I was reminded again about my ambitions for art and ministry. I want other called workers to be able to feel confident in teaching art, to know how to find art that communicates the gospel, and to encourage creative people to make art for the church. So all of this and more is what I dream for my online resource, artandministry.com. So I built the branding and the base of this website for the capstone, but it's not going to be just for today. I'm going to keep building on this. So you'll notice in the corner over there, I have a poster. It's got 3 years of topics for each month. So for each month, I'm going to interview an expert on that topic, collect my findings into an article, and then publish that on the website. So I already have 3 already up so I have Help, I'm Teaching Art, Help, My Church is Bare, and Help, I Want to Become an Artist. So next up for April is the Noodle Intervention Plan. So what that means is, so you know how like in grade school art, you just, a a lot of times you're just cutting and pasting and making noodle necklaces. So if you have strong opinions about that, please come see me after this presentation, because I would love to interview you for the article. So you can also help me by buying my swag to help spread the word. So I have stickers, I have buttons, magnets, I have sketchbooks and pencils. Or you could pick up a business card, and that is free. But I would love for all of you also to come check out the website. We're going to have computers up for you to look at it. There's 3 audiences, so for educators, for churches, and that includes lay members, so that would be everyone, and then creators as well. And so you can subscribe to the website and indicate what your preference is for topic, and then I'll notify you when the next resource is available for that. So what I hope you come away with from this presentation and visiting my booth is that we truly are created by the great Creator to be creators ourselves. Nurture that spark, pass it on, and soon the Lutheran Church will be ablaze with people expressing their faith through art. Thank you.
I think we have a little time for some question and answer. If anybody wants to ask some questions of the artists, we can take a few minutes for that. Teachers aren't afraid of the silence. Yes.
This one's for Maida. You talked a lot about how different aspects of creation seem to apply specifically to you and remind you of God's specific heart for you. And I found I experienced that for myself, especially with like the night sky or thunderstorms. Are there any like specific areas of God's creation you find yourself returning to?
The clouds in the sky, all the time. When I left for Florence, something that my dad reminded me for comfort is that the sky is always available. And, you know, it's a place that you never lose. And it's also a place that's constantly changing. Like, God is giving you a new sunset every single day, a new sunrise, new cloud formations. That's probably my favorite. Yeah, Carrie.
Just for the sake of the video, rephrase the question.
Oh. Okay, so she asked about if there was plant life or animals specifically in Italy that influenced me, or kind of a broader research. For me, it was very broad. I wanted to make sure to include a lot of global creatures and plant life, and also local, specifically to Minnesota and to kind of the Midwest, because I think sometimes in like a lot of creation artwork I've seen, we get really caught up in like some of the more exotic feeling things to us. Like this first image that I did has an octopus and like a whale and a lionfish and all of these kind of exciting, colorful things. But they are equally as beautiful as like northerns or walleye. So I was trying to get a good range. I don't know that I have any specific from Italy, I guess.
First of all, this is a great art show. All three of you were so articulate and had such great things to say. My question is for Anna. And Anna, you said, I think it was in, I kind of forget where you said it, but it might have been on your video.
Okay. Do I need to rephrase that? Okay. I'll try. Was there something in this project that I felt that I conquered and kind of overcame, and in a broader sense in life as well? Is that pretty good?
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. I think I can answer your question better than I can rephrase it. So yes, I mentioned a couple times, I think, that I finally felt that I had maybe earned the title of artist, or that I finally felt like I was an artist. And I think it was because I had finally found that I had something to say and also something to give to other people, and the perfect medium to convey that. And I just suddenly felt this confidence instead of this imposter syndrome that I had kind of felt the entire rest of my education. And so in that way, in this project, I definitely conquered a lot of, I realized I'm tired of being afraid while I was working on this. I was tired of being afraid of Capstone. I was tired of being afraid to go to the studio and work on Capstone. I was tired of being afraid of graduating and going on into a future that I don't know what it looks like. And so as I faced the linoleum, and as I insisted on pushing through, and I felt that I had become an artist, I felt also like I was creating a metaphor for myself about life, that I don't have to be afraid all the time, and that I have promises. Wherever I go, I'm not alone. I've been promised this wonderful future. And so in a small way, I battled through Capstone, I guess, and faced that fear that I had. And then I feel now more empowered to feel that way about my life, and I'm reminded of my faith. So I hope that answers that. Misha?
So this is for all of you, but maybe targeted towards Holly. You guys each, in your presentations, spoke so well about the importance of art and creation, and how it has given you gifts personally, but also helped you spread gifts to other people. I guess this is kind of a broad question, but like, it seems through you guys so obvious how important art is. Why do you think, and you touched on this in your presentation, Holly, why do you think art is so often overlooked? Or why do you think it's important to vouch for creation?
Yeah, something that Professor Hartzell used to say at MLC was people often overlook the important for the urgent. And I think that's really why art tends to be overlooked, is there's so many things in life that are more urgent than taking the time to make art and express yourself that way. But it's still important. It's still a way. It's still a gift that God has given us, and He expects us to use our talents and not bury them.
Should I answer that, or should I? Yes, okay. Okay. I don't actually have an answer except to share in the frustration of feeling like it is often overlooked. I think that there are a lot of people that feel that maybe it's not very important, but I think that Maida and Holly are saying it so well by saying, God, the first thing that He did that we see is that He did is create. And so that's something that I just remind myself of when I feel that there's kind of this culture of like being useful. Maybe people don't think of art as being useful. I think it's very useful and it's very necessary. And when, sorry, there we go, okay. And when, my best answer is that I'm also frustrated, but I think that tonight with these incredible artists that I'm with, and this group of people that's listening to us, I feel very happy about it, and not as frustrated as I often am, like you mentioned.
So you're asking about like a reasoning for why art is so often neglected. I think it takes a lot of hope to make art. It takes a lot of optimism and a lot of hope, and those are not fashionable things to think about. I know a lot of people that really just seem to love to complain more than anything else. It's so easy. It's so easy. Making art is hard because you have to be stubborn about it. You have to be stubborn about your joy and about your optimism and about your hope that this thing that maybe looks really ugly right now as I'm working on it is gonna get better if I stick with it. I think people neglect it because a lot of people like to take the easy route. I'm not sure if that's the most thought out answer I can give you, but that's what I've got for right now. Sophie, you've had your hand up.
I just wanted to let you know I love your curation of the colors in your like prints. And I was wondering if you talk about like what did you have to do to get those colors like that, and like how, why did you?
For me? Yeah. Okay. Yeah, okay. Okay, can you hear me? Okay. Yes, so thank you for asking. I definitely mentally, as I was speaking, was like, oh, I didn't talk about that enough. So thank you. Yeah, so you mix these colors. I used oil-based inks. That's a product called Relief Ink, and you mix them in the same way that you would mix paint. So you have, a set of basically the primary colors, and then you mix really whatever shade you want from those colors. And for me, I went through, here's a fun fact, an entire container of white ink for every one of these. I was just constantly buying more white Relief ink because I would mix colors. So I was mixing colors the whole time. I would really like to emphasize how long I spent mixing these colors. And I just couldn't, I don't know if it was perfectionism, but I couldn't ever land on the shade that I wanted. I'm happy with them now, but at the time there was a lot of frustration. I was like, oh, that's not the right green. But yeah, so you just mix them on a palette in the same way that you would mix oil paint, and then you roll it out with the roller, and then you roll it on so that it's an even layer so that you can run it through the press. Is that good? Thank you. Okay. Natalie.
I have one for Holly. So I had the privilege of when Holly, when you were in your time at MLC, you were my 6th grade student teacher. And so watching you do this is so amazing. It warms my heart so much. And I was wondering if you could talk more about sort of, your vocation as deciding to choose a creative career. That's how you said you wanted to, you learned you wanted to do that. And you started out in a very blatant path in Welsh schools, teaching, actively involved in that way. And that's not always, where God wants us. And it's a journey for everyone, going through that. So I want to just hear more about yours.
Yeah, thank you. So my journey, in the hymn, it says, if you cannot preach like Paul, you can teach the little children. And I thought that was my calling because I had a heart for ministry. But I had forgotten that in a different verse, it says you can also hold up Moses' hands. And as I've done some soul searching, I realized that my place, I don't have to be the person, the called worker out there in the field. I could help those called workers. And that's really where I felt my calling to be, to make these resources for them. Lydia.
I have a question. This is for all three of you guys. I was wondering if there is a piece of each of your projects that you are really proud of or really love that maybe isn't super visible to everyone here. I was wondering for prints, is there something behind the scenes that you really want people to know about, or in Maida's pages, or in your entire creation of art and ministry? Is there
Yeah, so hidden gems. So I'll start off quick. On the website, there's a page called resources, and my plan for that is to continue to grow that with a list of external resources that these people can go to for things related to art and ministry. So my plan is to collect a list as much as I can of all the artists and everything that anyone would need to be able to carry out their ministry.
For me, it was how these pieces went together as a whole body of work. I hadn't really, for this, done anything that was a series in this way, and I was very focused on them as individual pieces as I was working on them. Another one of those things I decided without understanding why was that I wouldn't look at them side by side, and I didn't until very close to the end. I was thinking about them as individual pieces, and what I'm proud of is that I was able to create a sensation that these are a body of work, that they do go together, even though the colors and the places are so different. That was a big moment for me in the studio, was finally allowing myself to look at them side by side, because I was scared. I was scared again. I was really like, what if these don't look like the same, what if it doesn't look like the same person made all of these? And when I finally was like, okay, you're just gonna face that fear, I looked at them side by side and I was like, okay, this is actually a body of work, and it looks like the same person made all of them, and it looks like a body of work, so that would be mine.
I think I have a lot of little hidden things for you to notice throughout most of this book. Part of the point is that you reread it and spend extra time dwelling in it. But for the purposes of this show, I think maybe one of the hidden gems is I've got this entire process book back here that a lot of times you don't get access to an illustrator's sketchbook, because it's kind of a vulnerable thing to show. There's messes in there, there's things that didn't occur in the book in there, but there's a lot of breakthroughs in there too. So I'd encourage people to take a look at that. Tristan.
Question for you, Maida. So you mentioned the importance of hope to creating art, and how you have to be really stubborn and determined and sometimes obstinate to trust that you're going to be able to create the creation that you envision. I imagine that was something that was exacerbated in trying to capture Genesis 1 and 2. I imagine that was something that was pretty daunting to start out. Did you feel that way, and how did you overcome that throughout your creation?
I was actually kind of hoping to revisit this anyways, because I regret saying that people don't make art because they like taking the easy route. I don't think it's about the easy route. I think it's that there's a lot of other things in life that sweep you up. Something more along those lines. I think the things that sustained me through this project was, first off, just kind of some small successes as I was working on the images, feeling like I was getting somewhere, and I was kind of getting a lot of feedback from people who would come through that like the beauty was translating. And then also a lot of trust. Something that I pray a lot is that I think I said this in the video, that I can be a vessel for God's love, and that He just can use me to pour that onto other people. And so that was kind of my goal throughout this whole thing. And I think probably maybe something that sustained me the most is that at its core, it's not even my work. And that it's my job to show up to the studio, and it's my job to start, drawing things, and then to trust.
Ellie.
So it takes a huge amount of contemplation from you guys to create any of these projects, and so much time and effort for each individual aspect of it, but that's not innately something an audience has to do. An audience can look at a work, right, and take 2 seconds and walk away. How would you hope an audience would
would approach your work? Or how would you encourage an audience member who isn't used to that form of contemplation to approach your work with contemplation?
With curiosity. That's why kids are really good at looking at art and looking at books, because they haven't been taught not to be curious yet. Part of that is asking a lot of questions, looking at things and wondering why or how, and being okay with not knowing.
I'm trying to think of my answer, sorry. I would say something that I try to do as I look at art is I really love just imagining what, I think a lot about the artist as I look at people's work, and I wonder what choices they made, and I wonder why they made the choices they made. And so I really think just spending longer. I remember this was an exercise in an art history class once. We had to spend, I think it was like 6 minutes in front of a piece and actually fully just look at it for that whole time. And it was really, like, there's so much in a museum, for example, but if you can just try and focus on one thing for a long time, so much more will be revealed. And so I think just being conscious of like taking that time to be curious, and maybe thinking about what was going on in the artist's head, because I think that's then something that you can translate into all of God's creation, is really taking time to try and understand the world and understand other people, if you just take the time to do that.
So my media is not necessarily in art, but you can still contemplate these things by, I have plugins for printing out sections of the article, so you can maybe put it on your wall or give it to your administration to amp up the art program at your school.
Last one? Yeah, we're running out of time, but I would like each of you to, first, Holly, I want you to tell us how many people are on your staff there at Art Institute.
It's just me.
It's just you. And the animation was just you.
Well, the animation, the sound design was from Philip Wells, but the rest of it was myself.
Okay, then give us each the 1 minute summary of what's next. What is going to happen to you after graduation?
Yeah, so after graduation, I plan to continue on obviously publishing those articles every month, but it's just going to be a volunteer side project. If you're interested in contributing for interviews or being a writer and joining my volunteer staff, you're welcome to join. But otherwise, I'll be looking for graphic designs jobs for my day job.
My future is very unclear, and but I'm not afraid. Yeah, so I'm really, my minor is arts administration, and I'm very passionate about the arts in general, and trying to be an advocate for them in wherever I go. But wherever I go, I also would like to have a space where I can continue to do printmaking. So, yeah.
So this August, my boyfriend and I are both moving to Chiang Mai, Thailand to be artist missionaries. We're gonna go, we're gonna make art, we're gonna make friends, and we're gonna talk about our faith.
I warned you, they have a point of view. Thank you very much. You presented yourselves really, really well. This, I agree with Pete, this is a great show. It's not over. Please do some of that contemplation as we hopefully get the chairs kind of out that direction, not necessarily in front of the art, because the art, is here for you. Let's have some time to engage with it. Do some of what they recommended. Be curious. Look at the art. There's also grapes, but look at the art. I think there's probably grapes. Thank you very much. Have a great evening.